Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today I've got a little product I want to share with you. I actually was over visiting my local Kubota dealer and found this. I didn't know that Kubota really made a locking grease gun coupler. So as you know, there's several companies out there now, such as Lock and Lube, I think was actually one of the first companies that came out with a locking grease gun coupler. And I had one of those. I've actually done a video on that back a few years ago. I really liked the Lock and Lube. And also, I actually did a grease gun coupler shootout where I had several different ones and put them in different areas and spaces. And there were some cheap ones from Amazon, plus the one from Lock and Lube. And the ones from Amazon actually worked pretty good, but then there were some limitations based on sizing and stuff of those locking couplers. So the one from Kubota here actually is in between some of those as far as size goes. So I'm gonna try it out, see how it does. I have a tricky grease coupling that I always have trouble getting the Lock and Lube actually to lock onto it without leaking grease out of it. So anyways, let's open this up, take a look at it. We're gonna try it out in several different places. We'll take it to that real tricky grease fitting that I have and see if it will seal up on that one. The base of it through here is quite large, but the nozzle or the end of it itself is actually pretty slim and pretty small. So the way this one actually works, you actually squeeze it and it has a roller right here that pushes against this flange and then unlocks the grease fitting on the inside. It pulls it back into the grease gun. One downfall I can see with this already is whenever this end of this pulls back into the grease fitting, if you have an area where it's hard to get to, that makes that deeper to have to lock on. I had one before that in certain places, it wouldn't allow you to lock on because of that. This is the Lock and Lube right here. As you can see, the entire profile of this one is much more slender. Now the end of the Kubota one is very similar to the Lock and Lube in size, almost the same. It's just a hair larger than the Lock and Lube, but not by much. This is the Lock and Lube XL, which has the extended barrel on it. The normal ones is only about half this length. And then you have this section, which is also, you know, pretty small. But the difference, the Lock and Lube, if you notice, the teeth or the jaws on the Lock and Lube come out. So your grease fitting will go here, and then as it slides back in, it locks onto the grease fitting. So that allows you to get to grease fittings almost no matter where they're at, as long as you have room for this barrel to be able to fit to it. So let's go put it on some grease fittings and see how it does. So I do like the fact that this is one hand operation. You just squeeze it and it's spring loaded, so it comes back and locks itself on. You do have to push it on a little bit as you're putting it on though. If you just put it over it, it doesn't lock on. You actually have to push it in. That makes the seal. And you can kind of feel it click as you're pushing it on. And when you feel that, you can let go of it. And then it locks on and it's not coming off. I've got a little bit of leakage on the grease fitting. We'll try it on the other side. See, that one actually is pretty close and it almost doesn't fit. If you notice right here, as I put the coupler on, it has to push in to be able to lock on, and it goes all the way up, and the edge of the nozzle actually touches the hub right here on the wheel. But it does lock on. It does okay. It leaks a little bit of grease. It's not a whole lot, but it is leaking some. So you can push on this a little bit and squeeze the trigger and it won't leak whenever you do that. So that time it actually locked on there pretty good and didn't leak. But it's still right on the edge. It seems like if you push on the nozzle just a little bit, then it doesn't leak at all. But you can see the grease now squirting out of the caster, so we've got enough in there. So let's go try it on some other fittings on the tractor and see if it does any good on those. I'm actually a little bit disappointed because it does leak a little bit. So here is the notorious grease fitting that I have trouble with. The edge of this fitting has been knocked off, like right over here on this side. So it causes it to leak a lot of times. So let's see if this one will lock onto it. If it locks onto this one, then it'll probably do fine on the rest of them. But this is the worst one, and this is the one I always have trouble with. Wow. That one actually just put out, you can see just a little tiny bit of grease right there around the end of it. But once it put pressure on it from the grease gun, it locked on and it stopped leaking. It sealed right up. And I'm surprised. I figured this one was for sure going to leak around the fitting because of that bad grease zerk. It sealed right up on there and done a really good job. What I do like about this grease coupler is the ease of use, because this thing's super easy. You just squeeze the handle, it unlocks, you squeeze it, you slide it over it, and you let go of it, and it locks on, and it won't come off. Let's go ahead and try some of these other fittings. That one's sealed right up, no leakage on it. And we're gonna move it down to some of these others. So it'd probably be a good idea to clean these out first, but my other grease gun, I don't have any problems getting it on there. The barrel on this is the same size or just slightly smaller than the actual hole here on these pin grease points. I'm having to push that pressure in there and it's pushing the grease out of that hole. I think it's going to lock on. Yeah. So I had to squeeze that excess grease out of the hole because the barrel size is almost the same exact size as that pinhole. But it does lock on, it doesn't leak, and it puts the grease right in there. But you can see how far I had to push that in the hole, and I had to push that excess grease out of there. See if this one is easier to go on or harder. Yeah, so you can see that one, it doesn't lock on either. So let's get something, I'm gonna clean that out and see if that'll slip on there easier. I'm losing daylight here a little bit, so I'm gonna try to wrap this video up, but I went ahead and got me a little stick and cleaned these holes out, and now this thing will go in and lock right on without any problem. As you can see, that has no problem going on there now. In fact, it looks like that this particular end is made for these recessed fittings because it fits this hole perfectly. So with that grease moved out of the way, it actually does great. It locks on, it doesn't leak. And you can see how fast you can change between the fittings. Uh-oh, that one came off. Let's try that one again. All right, now it's locked on there good. Now we can move to the other fitting. It's locked on. So that works really good. As you can see, I'm using one hand to put it on all these fittings. So you know how you start out trying something new and you think you're gonna have one impression with it, and by the time that you finish messing with it, you can have a complete different impression of it. So that's kind of the way this was. The first grease zerk that I put that on, I seen a little bit of leakage going on. I kind of had to push it just a little bit to get it to seal up. And I thought, man, this isn't gonna be quite as good as some of the others. And this Kubota product is a little bit more expensive than most of the others. I believe this was $45. So with that in mind, though, you know, that grease coupler looks like it is really well made. It looks like it's heavy duty. It is rated for 8,000 PSI. So most grease guns, I think actually this Dewalt actually has about a 10,000 PSI max. So you could potentially overpower it with that battery grease gun. But for the most part, unless you get one that's just clogged up and really hard to put pressure into, then you're probably not going to have any issues with that. But like I was saying, you know, you start out one way thinking that it's going to be a certain way, and then by the end, it ended up being pretty good. I really actually like it. It seems like it's made to fit those fittings on the Kubota tractor, which would kind of make sense. Considering it's made by Kubota, you would think that they would engineer it with their tractors in mind, and that's kind of the way that it seems. So using it on the Kubota product, or at least on the Kubota tractor, I am liking it really well. I haven't used it on anything else yet, so I don't have any other opinion other than just on my zero-turn mower and the Kubota M6060. It was pretty cool to actually see my local dealer, which my local dealer here is Davis Equipment in Ashland, Kentucky. They actually was real good to talk to. They had a whole bunch of products inside the store that were, you know, like Kubota accessory type products. Of course, they keep all your oil change products, filters, and motor oil, and everything that you need to maintain your equipment. They were really friendly to talk to, and I actually was talking to them about getting another tractor because I've been thinking about getting a small subcompact tractor to mow some of the pastures, and they were very helpful on that and very informative and trying to help me out and possibly make a decision on what I actually needed to do the jobs that I'm looking to do. But overall, first impressions and kind of first thoughts on this, I really do like this grease coupler. You can see the joint and the hinge mechanism, and it's got like a roller right here on this part that will probably last for years and years. It'll probably never wear out. I don't think there's anything in this joint. The hinge is actually really heavy duty. So I think this thing will last for years and years to come. So stay tuned, because I'm going to leave that on my grease gun and use that for all my greasing purposes over the next year or so. And I'll keep you updated on how that thing's holding up and how it does. I have a whole bunch of equipment, whether it be a tractor or mower, all of our hay equipment or rake or hay baler, everything there. The hay baler has some pretty tight spots to get into, so we'll have to see if this thing actually will reach those spots. So stay tuned for all that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.